Welcome back to the Tectonic Takes Podcast. With me today, Ivan Ornelas. We've got Saz. Saz, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It was a good week for us. It was a solid Quakes week. Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a very solid week. It started out great. It was a very nervy U.S. Open Cup game until the very end. But most important thing is that we are U.S. Open Cup quarterfinalists. So at least the San Jose Earthquakes are, and we're happy that they achieved that first time since 2017. Another way to think about it, first time in this podcast history that we get to celebrate a really deep cup run. So definitely puts in perspective how long the wait has been and the frustrations of losing to Monterey Bay, to Sacramento Republic, to whoever else. That kind of steps aside for a moment. We've beaten MLS opposition in this competition, and then we've got Austin in early July. So we'll start there. We'll talk about the U.S. Open Cup victory. We'll talk about the Houston Dynamo game. And then we've got another pair of games in this relentless gauntlet of a schedule to discuss with LA Galaxy midweek. Not happy about that, but maybe a tectonic take. I'm even less happy about the fact that they scheduled the St. Louis game. Of course, finally we get like a marquee time slot, but it's on the same Saturday as the UEFA Champions League final.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough one. I mean, you can't you can't make your cake and have it too, or whatever the saying is, right?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're at a gathering with friends and family watching the UEFA Champions League final and they see you on your phone watching the San Jose Earthquakes game, stand your ground. Yeah, you're allowed to do that. Um, but first things first. So with the situation regarding Daniel's injury, there was less of an intrigue regarding who was going to start this goalkeeper slot. It was going to be Earl Edwards Jr. all along. And this was a game where he definitely reshaped his perception among San Jose Earthquakes fans. So we'll start with there. What do you make of Earl Edwards Jr. in his key performance?
In the Portland game, for sure, I think he made like three to, and if you want to be super generous, five. Like three for sure, but five if you want to be super generous. Like whoa, saves. Like saved, like legitimately saved us a goal. You want to call it a redemption game, maybe. Might be a little early. Might need some more from that. But yes, definitely. Obviously, I think all of us going into we're like, oh no, like the one person that we did not like we would want from the starting lineup would be Daniel going into this game.
Yeah, it would have been nice for sure, but I think that on the back of his Portland Timbers performance, sure he let in 3 goals against Houston Dynamo, but if he's going to remain our U.S. Open Cup keeper for the remainder of this run at this point, because now that you're at the quarterfinals, there's only a maximum of 2 games beyond that. It would be harsh to start Earl Edwards Jr. for the quarterfinals and then not give him the semis and the finals because he's already got you that far, assuming they do win that game. So that's kind of the situation that we're in, but now it's less of, oh no, like we have to score 4 goals to make up for that versus we can keep a clean sheet with Earl Edwards Jr. And clean sheets are precious gold for San Jose Earthquakes. Like they're very rare, and we really appreciate that. And the goalkeeping situation gets a little more fleshed out because, of course, we had Francesco Montali on the bench for the U.S. Open Cup. And then for the Houston Dynamo game, we had Luka Ulrich in the bench there. And the reason for that, of course, is because you're going to save Montali for the town. And they ended up winning 3-0 in comfortable fashion. So that is really good. A big theme throughout this month has been all hands on deck. We've needed contributions from 20 plus players in the senior team, and the fact that the next players in line in the town are also starting to heat up and they're not just winning results because, okay, we shoved Paul Marie and a recovering Hernan Lopez in that lineup, so of course we should be thrashing these teams, is very promising. What do you think of the pipeline we got going on with our goalkeeper, Saz?
Yeah, I mean, congrats to Orge signing I think it was officially a two-way contract, but his first professional contract. So congratulations to that. That's always the dream, I guess, right? I have mixed feelings on it because I'm like, okay, I see why you want to send the better of the two to go play for the town, but I also feel like we want best hands on deck for the first team, but then it's like, okay, what are the chances of a goalkeeper getting injured mid-game? Worked out for both teams, so like hindsight being 2020, I guess it did work. Yeah, I mean, good for both teams. Then, like you said, it is nice to see us get a win where it's not like all these first team players. I joked like imagine like a couple weeks ago. Imagine you're like this 17-year-old, like maybe 16, like 'cause that's roughly the age gap. Someone maybe there's some 20-year-olds roughly, and you're playing like just a random day. You're coming up, and then the grandson of Diego Maradona is on the other team along with 5 other like professional guys. And you're just like, I just drove like 8 hours to get this ass whooping. Like that's insane. So yeah, I think it's good to have the town have their actual squad and do well with that.
Yeah, I must admit, when you said what are the chances of another goalkeeper injury in the middle of the game, I just heard Timmy Turner saying, "What could possibly go wrong?" And then immediately something going wrong. Because with Daniel, the one weakness of him has been injuries. So while goalkeeper injuries are rare in general, I feel like we have to put an asterisk when it comes to San Jose Earthquakes players.
I mean, yeah, and you never know. It it's rare though that I feel like it's with a player that unanimously the fan base is like, ugh, like should he be starting? Like those players seem to be the Iron Man of the group that can just consistently play week in week out. Victor Costa is another example. Um, yeah, so it was definitely interesting, but we got the results. So, and I mean even on to the Houston game, I won't go too much into it because I'm assuming we'll talk about it later. But I would have to rewatch it, the first two. I don't really blame Earl Edwards for any of the goals. The first two were really poor marking. Again, I'll save more of it for later. And then I was right in front of the third goal. That was an own goal. I know they didn't mark it as that. That was like he would have had to have insane reactions. Like he was already starting to go this way, and then Romney stuck out his leg, and it perfectly curled out of his reach. Like I was directly in front of that. I was on the siren. Like you can't blame him for that one. That would have been a crazy reaction save.
Yeah, there was a lot of misfortune in front of the goalkeeper for those 3 goals. And the rest of the lineups for both these games were pretty similar. The one change would be Useni Buddha starting the U.S. Open Cup game, and then we brought in, it was Joseph Martinez for the MLS game, which makes sense. You do have to make some of those decisions with those players north of 30, which would you rather start? And Buddha has been a capable starter, so it's not like we're expecting a huge drop off other than the fact that one's Joseph Martinez and one isn't. So that is the type of confidence that we're getting from a lot of our players. And so much so that many of our goals this week have come from less likely sources. One of them was able to advance the Quakes to the next round of the Cup, and yet he found himself not even in the squad for the MLS game. So we got to talk about the 2 key moments of that U.S. Open Cup game that really defined the game, because other than that, it was mostly spurn chances by the San Jose Earthquakes. Portland Timbers had a few chances here and there, but they were a little bit hamstrung themselves because their striker options were very limited. Other than Felipe Mora, who is a MLS starting caliber player, but more of a veteran replaceable player, they started 22-year-old Gage Guerra, and he was the worst performer according to FootMob of those 11. And also from the eye test, he wasn't really threatening. And then on their bench, their other striker option was born in 2008. So that was the key weakness for the Timbers. So when you look at it
Hurt
that
my
way,
soul to hear. Oh my god.
yeah, right. So the best performer was Ariel Lassiter, who is also not an everyday starter anymore for an MLS team. But this is the 3rd time we've played against Omer Fernandez this season, because he played against us in the first game against the Colorado Rapids. Then he got traded, and now we've played the Portland Timbers twice, and we're going to play them again next month. So good chance that Omer Fernandez will make his 4th appearance against the Quakes pretty soon. But overall, the big moment was whether or not Christian Espinoza was taken down inside the box late in regulation. What did you think when you saw that?
He was again right in front of me. He was. Did he? Did he run into him? Did he put a little bit of theatrics on? Did he know what he was doing well before he got the ball? Yes. Yes, he did. Was he also fouled inside the box? Yes. Is the whole argument of like, well, the contact initiated here. That's really stupid. That's not how it works. It's like you could argue the initiation of the contact started before the ball was even played and they were running shoulder to shoulder. So why not have the free kick 34 more yards back? I thought that was ridiculous. Ball don't lie. I guess we ended up winning the game anyways, right? That was definitely a very frustrating moment, especially because, again, that was the goal right in front of me, like 20, 30, 40 feet in front of me. So, like, I had a great view of it. And the game overall was, I went into the game thinking, okay, look, it's Portland. They're probably mad we just beat them. We are putting a first team out, but I won't necessarily be mad if we lose. I just want a fight. And we put on a fight, and as the game went on, like I've said this like in hyperbole before, but this is like one of the first times I've ever experienced this. When there was about like 15 minutes left, and I was like not at regular time, like into added time, I was feeling sick to my stomach because they started bringing starters on. We were starting to gas out, and I'm like, to come this far and lose, it would hurt my soul. Like, and we had so many chances, and then we didn't have the penalty called. Excuse me. And then if we had lost early on, right, that's one thing. It's whatever. We gave it a good shot at this. It's like, oh my God, we have been right there. We've had so many chances, and we're this, that, the other. We cannot lose like this. Like, I would have been so sick to my stomach. Thankfully, we pulled out the win. Yeah, penalties would have been interesting for sure as well. But, yeah, got it done in OT.
Were the players that gave you the most fear about Portland Timbers stealing this win coming off the bench? Juan Mosquera, David DeCasa, and Jonathan Rodriguez?
Mosquera in particular, he finds a way to get past us every single year, getting us this, getting a goal, it seems like. No, for sure. I saw all three of them being sucked on together, and I'm like, oh God, the big boys are here, the bigger brothers here. Like it's over. It's over because we were starting to get tired during that time too. Those were definitely the three that scared me. And then on to your earlier point about a guy who scored a goal but then wasn't even in the lineup, Jack Skane. I understand the tactics of like subbing it on and subbing back off, but I still don't understand how he wasn't in the even on the bench at New England, and then coming into this game, how he wasn't there. Look, I like Jack, so like I will admit I am biased. But I also understand, look, he's not quite the technical player. He's not quite the ball driver that we have with Ernon or anyone else in midfield. I'm not even going to kid myself and say, it's a competition. With that being said, it's not too different than what Judd brings us. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of speed. It's a lot of fight. But the difference is you can play Jack in just about any position. I'd rather if Jamar's injured right now, and I'm just not a Victor Costa fan. So, a lovely person, lovely human being, love talking to him. But as a player, I don't know how he's still on the pitch. I'd rather have Jack there. It's getting to the point where, it might as well be Nick Lima out there.
Yeah, so Jack Skane's goal, it was a little bit of a redirection from what we thought initially was Mark Anthony Kaye's goal. And it was a brilliant move by Kaye, regardless, to put that ball in a dangerous area, either toward the net or at least for Jack Skane to finish it off. And I had a very wonderful poetic tweet in store for that goal. It's like Canadian on Canadian, because it was Mark Anthony Kaye and Crepeau. And then I had to think of something else for Skane, and I just actually it was Skane's goal. Congratulations. So nothing too creative there. Maybe Skane brings the pain, but that would have been nice. For me, it's an interesting situation. You can't just think of the results-oriented line of thinking where this guy scores a goal and he's usually a fringe player, but we're automatically going to put him in the roster. While that might elicit an angry email from a FIFA player on career mode, in real life, the players understand their role and know that it takes more than one goal to change their position in the squad. That being said, if we were going to find a spot for Skane in this last matchday roster, finding a spot for him on the bench, I feel like it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have him there instead of Nick Lima. Do we need both Nick Lima and Paul Marie on the bench? Probably would rather have Paul Marie. Reed Roberts plays center back. That's the next best available backup there, so you need Reed Roberts on the bench. And then the rest of the bench kind of speaks for itself from there. But a lot of these players, we talk about the list of injuries that we're dealing with right now. Daniel is obviously going to start. Earl Jr. goes to the bench, and then our young goalkeepers will get their playing time in the town. And then there's the likes of Arango, Shakiris, Buck, Rodriguez, and Ricketts. Who knows if there's a spot for Ricketts, but the other players are definitely going to be in the match day 20 one way or another. So it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, for sure. And given the name Jack is a jack of all trades. Like, other than center back and goalie, he might have even played a game at center back for Quakes 2 when they were Quakes 2 before the town for like 10 minutes, if I'm remembering somewhat correctly. I might be remembering that wrong. But pretty much every position but goalkeeper, he has played for us. Like, so just having that there, just in case you never know, is nice. The pace, the strength, the experience compared to some of these guys. It's definitely interesting. And then another name we didn't even mention, Benji Kikanovic. It was good to see him back in the Open Cup. I want to see more of him. I thought that was another one that would have made his way back to the lineup. Paul Marie has somewhat made his way back to the bench, at least. So, at least there are vital signs and life signs of the Frenchman. I get we probably don't want to rush Benji back. So that makes a little sense. And I wonder if that's just Bruce's style, because we've looked at Hernan. This is the longest recovery I've ever seen for a shoulder in my life. Like, I think you could literally just break the bone and put it back in and be ready before he did. And then we played him a couple sub appearances, Town 2, played him 45 versus Open Cup, and then he got subbed out just as a precautionary. He said he was fine. Like, he's like, I have no idea why I was subbed. I think it was 60 or 65th minute, which is the next 15 minutes up. I get Bruce being careful with them, but it's not like it was a leg injury. It was a shoulder injury. Like, that doesn't need as much grace period back to soccer, I feel like. It for sure does, but not as... I feel like we're treating it like a hammy.
Yeah, I think one of the big questions that was being talked about among Quakes fans in our Discord server was, is it the point now where we start worrying about Hernan Lopez being able to recover his productivity pre-injury? And it's an interesting one because, like you said, it's not the type of injury where you expect, like, oh, we don't know if he's going to come back the same, that sort of thing. We were not expecting that. We were expecting a longer recovery time than what was initially expected. So the fact that he's back on the field at all is still very incredible. But it remains an enigma for me. I think that it's fair to say that he's not a guaranteed starter if he's not 100%, but I don't think he's necessarily being a liability either, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think his role changes. I think he's really the Montero replacement at the end of the day, and like we had been playing a 4-2-3-1 for God knows how long. Now we're in a system without an attacking mid, so he's not really a center mid, and he's not really that box to box. And Harks and LaRue, I don't want to say they're untouchable, but it's been a great partnership there thus far. I like the idea of him on the left wing, and I think it's a bit of a different outlook, and it reminds me of when we had, and different players, but just stay with me, when we had Hika, and when we had Vaco, where it was Espinoza, the runner on the right side, and then you had the more creative guy on the left who gets the ball and draws it in. And then you got your striker to go along with it. I like the idea of it, especially if we're playing this 3-back, then you can get that winger with, as much as it pains me right now, Victor Costa. He's the one on the side, to be the one to run up and down the wing. So, and then, especially when Chicho, Joseph, and all of them are in there, that front four-ish is really fluid, and they're really moving around. So I think it's just trying to figure out where we want to play him again and where we want to play everyone else, because Bruce really hasn't had time to gel a team yet. Like, it's like every time something happens, someone gets injured or something happens, like every 3 matches, there is a big change in the squad. Positions, the shape is still the same, but the tactics will change. You can even see it like the games where Pellegrino's in there. Okay, this is going to be more of a game we want to take down the ball and we want to try and dribble it through versus, okay, we're going to have Buddha and Christian. We're going to go a little bit more long on this one. Not that the Pellegrino ones aren't long, but running more into space with Buddha.
Yeah. And the last point I have from the U.S. Open Cup is that Christian Espinoza was awarded Player of the Match for that game, and I think that was another type of game where even though Espinoza didn't find his way into the score sheet either as a goal or an assist provider, that he was a threat all game long, and he was allowing to get other people involved, and he's developing that gravity a bit more. And I think maybe why we consider Espinoza to be underrated in Major League Soccer circles is the fact that people were aware of the threat he provided, but there's a difference between being aware of that and then having that gravity that other top players in MLS have. No one's going to have Messi level gravity in terms of MLS players because he's Messi. But in terms of, Carlos Gil, Ricky Puig, those players, I think Espinoza has earned that level of respect, and he does a lot of the hard work well, even if he has to do less of it now with Daewon Jones covering his side of the field. I think that it was a very strong performance. And in the press conference before the Sacramento Republic game, he said how much he wanted to play in the U.S. Open Cup. And because of the way that Bruce Arena set up his team, he couldn't play Espinoza in that game, but things worked out where he got his chance and he showed what he wanted to do.
Yeah, I think you hit the head on the nail with gravity. We're number one in the league in just about every single offensive stat. I think we're number two in one of them. I don't remember which one, but it is quite impressive. Like, he's tiring them down. They know he's the name on the sheet for the report. When it comes to scouting, it's just running up and down. Even if he's having a bad game, the gravity and the attention to detail on him is really important. Before we fully move on, the one thing I did want to say about Portland, what I was really most impressed by the Quakes was the defensive scheme. Like, other games, it's just kind of like, what are we doing? We're not pushing, we're not pressing. Like, this one really seemed like we had a unit and we were sticking together and we had to follow a certain man, and when we got to a certain part, we would get in a shape and then we would trap on the side, something I've been begging for. The reason it was a little scary is the back three, it seemed like their job was to deal with long balls, scramble defense, and then figure it out, and it ended up working the whole night. But that's why it was also a little scary. But from pretty much like a little past our half to all the way up to theirs, our midfield and front line, the pressure, the organization, I'm gonna say that was the best I had seen it under Bruce. And I was really impressed. And this is kind of some of the things I expect to go in, night out. I didn't see it as much in the Houston game. But that was probably my favorite part of the night, the defensive scheme.
I agree. I think that the defense has been much improved overall. Sure, you're going to have a couple of 3-3 results in the mix this month that will provide some question marks into that defensive area. But just because you can see 3 goals in the game doesn't mean that it's been the shambles that we're used to seeing the Quakes defense as recently as last season. It feels a little bit different. Like, you can understand why these goals are being conceded beyond just we're not good enough. Like, we're playing against some pretty good offenses. Granted, Houston Dynamo more known for their defensive record, but then again, they're starting to get goals from players like Griffin Dorsey, and that's a sign of a offense that's starting to find its way under Ben Olsen. So we got to credit them for that.
Yeah, with that being said, though, the first 2 goals against Houston were pitiful. Those were the only thing I was upset with against the Houston game. It is marking. It is disgusting to watch how we mark every single set piece. We're not ball side. We're letting them run across, and then it's kind of like half zonal, half going. Congratulations on the call up to Dewan. One of them is for sure on him. Arguably both. I'd have to rewatch. But it's just like there's 2 men on, I believe it was Romney, and then he's just kind of watching, and it's like, even the back line, we didn't fully have our guy. Like, just, I'd rather it be a man marking system, and then you could hold your hand up and be like, okay, hey, like, he doesn't mark him, or like half and half, where it's like, okay, you can have the 3 you want to do zonal in the certain areas, and then the man marking guys, but it just, our marking was so bad. Third one, unlucky. Like, I don't really care about that one. That was unlucky. That was my biggest complaint with the Houston game. My only complaint really was the marking on those first two goals. That was child level marking.
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit more about the lineups and the tactics, but also I wanted to point out a lot of the parallels that were happening that Saturday. So we look at our sisters in Bay FC. They drew 2-2 with Houston Dash, and they also conceded a late goal that turned a win into a draw. So already some funny parallels there, almost scary parallels in that game. And then we'll look at our stepbrothers, New England Revolution. They were in a 3-3 draw that was unexpected against Sporting Kansas City. And then Oakland Roots as well. They also conceded 3 goals, but to break the chain, they did not score 3 goals. So, maybe that last one was a stretch, but I did notice some of those similarities. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was. That's a funny coincidence in sports. I'll say, now that I mentioned my biggest negative of the Houston game, my biggest positive, and I mean, Preston Judd even kind of said it. We want a team that says, we don't say die. Goonies don't say die. What this team has been lacking in the last couple of years is that fight. And what I've been saying this season is, do we have that in us? Can we do it? And we saw it tonight. And from all people, we saw it from Preston Judd, who not only has been kind of been hating on the fans, but especially for his finishing ability. And to grab 2 within 10 minutes, that's huge for him. That's a great game. And I really do like when Judd comes on, the pressure he brings, the physicality, the way Bruce is doing it is the right way to play him, in my opinion. I want that fight. I want those dogs, and we got it in that game. So what? We can see another one later. It sucks, right? And it was an unlucky one. But to see how mad Harks was, he was slamming the ground, he was just mad. No one was really blaming each other. Everyone was kind of mad. They expected more, and that's what I like from this team, because even with my interviews with some of the players from last season, it was always a thing of they would get a goal and it was when is it coming, not if it's going to come, when we're going to concede again or when we're going to officially lose the game. So it's nice to kind of get this mindset of winners in the Open Cup, and then in the regular season we're trying to prove something, we're trying to break something, and let's see if we can keep pushing that forward.
Yeah, we're hoping for that. I'll speak a little bit about Preston Judd before I continue, because he was awarded a spot on the Team of the Match week, and I think it's very much deserved. And who knows how many times he's going to have this opportunity. Again, there's a lot of competition, particularly for those forward positions once everyone's healthy, but you have to make those opportunities. It's a cliche, and it was repeated, I think, 5 or 6 times when Preston Judd got his start against New England Revolution. But he certainly did this time. This was his best performance in a Quakes uniform, and this is what we were hoping from. We saw flashes of this player at LA Galaxy, and we saw flashes of this player at the beginning of his Quakes career. The fact that this was his first goals scored since over a year ago, it showed some of those difficulties, and a lot of players had a difficult spell during last season because everyone was having trouble because the team wasn't performing well. So at the very least that he has this reprieve. We'll see how long he can keep this up, what his situation will look like in the next 2 games that we have to play. But once again, congratulations to Preston Judd, and thank you, because those goals were very much needed, along with Daniel Muniz.
No, 100%. He really deserves that, and he's someone who I think needed that. Actually, I don't think he cares about it at all, but deserved it. The Mooney goal was great, too. It was funny, I talked to him after the game, and about 10 minutes before he did the diving goal where he flew, he did the exact same thing on defense, and I said to myself out loud, I'm like, man, that'd be funny if he did that for a goal. I could see him doing that for a goal, and then lo and behold, I got kind of a crazy take, and it might be a little early to start talking about off season, and it might be a little early just depending on it, because I think the young kids have been great on the back line. I got a crazy thing. Daniel, Bruno Wilson, Rodriguez. I'm throwing Costa in there. Just Costa. And there's one more name, but I'm gonna save that for later. Gone after this season. They're great. They are the other 3, not Costa. The other 3 are great. Probably some of our best 3 players. They play a third of the season. They play half the season, and they're also 3 of our top 7 paid players. You get rid of them, you can get almost a whole new squad just off getting rid of those three players. You can find some new stars or some backups with that. The back three have been phenomenal. They're young. Let's build some youth out of that. Get a new goalkeeper, for sure. For sure, get a goalkeeper, like a starting one that is
I have
healthy.
a suggestion for a new goalkeeper. You
Yeah,
want
let's
to
hear it. Yeah.
What if we get Ethan Horvath?
I would love that. That's an experienced player. He's had some injuries, but I wouldn't say he's injury prone as far as I know.
Not guaranteed starter at Cardiff, and they got relegated.
Yeah, yeah, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Pochettino said, "I don't care if you're playing in Europe. I'd rather you be playing for your club." And we saw a fat MLS pick from this pool for the Gold Cup. Now, given we were kind of expecting something like that, but playing's playing. That is a phenomenal call. Yeah, yeah, I would like that one.
Replacing expensive, maybe injury prone players.
Yeah, yeah, and then he would probably want a decent contract, but if we pay him a little less, and then I got another one.
Okay.
I don't know what his salary is. The reason I didn't mention him is because I think his time as a player, like we don't need to see him on the field as much, but his locker room presence, I'm fine with keeping him. From what I've heard, he's great in the locker room. Mark Anthony K. I think the presence he brings in the locker room and I think that's a big reason. I think leadership qualities from what I've heard. Sure, let's keep that. We need that desperately. I like him a lot. It is like 3 paces slow. It is, and like he comes on as our defensive guy, and like it's not. It's a drop off from Harksey in the ability to run and do that. I like him a lot, but it is just everything he does, passing, moving, running, positioning, it is like 2-3 paces behind. It kind of reminds me of like I just recently watched Ted Lasso, like Roy Kent in those last couple of years. It's just like the legs aren't quite there. It's hard after the 60th minute, and like I like having him there, but it is in my opinion 2 or 3 steps slow.
I haven't thought about the Canadian Shield in that way, but what you just described might be the reason why he's had to be a substitution rather than a starter throughout this season. And on top of that, I think the tough part about keeping Mark Anthony K is he's shown enough when he's played that other MLS teams might want him as their starting defensive midfielder, which would have seemed unfathomable in his last few seasons because he hasn't really been lining up the radar in his performances prior to this year. So would he sign on for another year of possibly not starting if he's looking to? I don't know if there's anything he can do to maybe get on the Canada World Cup squad between now and 2026, but maybe to get some appearances before or after the World Cup. That would be something that I'm sure he's still thinking about in the back of his head. So, yeah, there could be some chops and changes, but I think that we'll put a pin on that and we'll see how the next few months go because there's just so much still left to do before this season ends. And I know normally we're thinking about next season in May because usually the Quakes have imploded in some way, shape, or form, or we have some real causes for concern. And I'm sure there still is in terms of smaller problems compared to previous seasons. But
No, that's a great point. Yeah, I had that conversation with someone that at this point in the season, I think this point last season, maybe give it like 2, maybe 3 more weeks, we were done. We were legit like done pretty much, not like math wise, but we were looking at it. We're like, it's over. Like we're not winning all these games, and we were just waiting for the official number to come through. Do we not have more points or like in the ballpark than we did last season already?
I would have to check. But I do know
Yeah.
that the slide after it was Hernan Lopez's debut in the LAFC game and Levi's. I think it took 2 to 3 more weeks after that where the Quakes just really started to slide and there was no recovery from there. We had a little bit of reprieve. We were able to somehow squeak out of our Leagues Cup group. We crushed Necaxa. That was
Yeah.
unexpected. And then we expectedly lost to LAFC after that. And then from there, it's just like, okay, I think we beat Real Salt Lake and that was it.
And I gotta be honest, is like as much as people there are people online being like, "Oh, we need to go for trophies. We need to do this." A successful season for us, in my opinion, as sad as it is to say, if we make the playoffs, it doesn't even have to be a home game. If we make the playoffs and they let like half the 3/4 of the teams in at this point, and we make a deep Open Cup run, which at this point we have, if we get one more win too, that's like solidified for sure. Um, it's a successful season for Bruce. I know we brought all these names in, but like coming off of last season, coming off the last couple season, a good run in the Open Cup and playoffs, I think that's a good season for us. And then I'll have a much higher bar for next year. Um, but with that being said, I think we're on track for a successful season for us.
Yeah, I think so. There's a slight caveat in the fact that with the format that I hate, the best of three, as long as you survive that 8-9 matchup, if you're in that final field of 8 playoff teams, you're guaranteed a home game. So that loses a little bit of significance for me, but yeah, I get what you mean. It would be nice to finish in the top four. Probably not going to happen, but we'll take playoffs and we'll see where we go from there, at least for year one. Um, I'll move on to some interesting lineup notes that I saw from this Dynamo team because they had to shuffle things around a bit with their U.S. Open Cup game. They lost to Austin, which are going to be our next opponents. The names Bond, Jonathan Bond in goal. Then they had Felipe Andrade, Obafemi Awodeshu, Pablo Ortiz, and Griffin Dorsey in the back four. We talked a little bit about Griffin Dorsey. He's on fire, apparently. He had goal and assist the MLS game before, and then he was very influential in this game as well. And then they had a midfield three of Brooklyn Reigns, Artur, and Jack McGlynn. Jack McGlynn from Philadelphia Union. He's been a transformative signing for Houston Dynamo. He's kind of taken on that role that Hector Herrera was supposed to do, so that's been a good signing for them. I was a little bit confused about Brooklyn Reigns. So he picked up a red card in the U.S. Open Cup, and they were knocked out of it. So I assumed that meant that he would have to pick up his suspension in the next MLS game. But I guess the way that it's structured, just whenever they play in the U.S. Open Cup again next year, he's going to miss that next game.
Yeah.
So that's a little weird. I feel like if you pick up a red card and you're out of a cup competition, the next domestic game you play, you got to sit that one out. But MLS is going to MLS, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I forget what his name is. I think he scored, but every single person that was standing around me came up to me and they're like, "Hey, look, it's Tommy Thompson! It's Tommy Thompson!"
Dorsey,
yeah. I was kind of seeing double.
It's the bun.
No, 100% blonde. Yeah, it was certainly interesting. And I got to be honest, it was really nice to put three past Bond. It was because historically speaking,
Galaxy,
the last couple seasons, he'll save like 40 versus us. Like the craziest thing, he'll have Manuel Neuer level games versus us, like out of nowhere, and then he won't play for Galaxy or just like he will have career games versus us. It feels like so. It was really nice to put three past him.
Yep, it definitely felt good. Their front three of Andre Linger, Ezekiel Ponce, and Amin Bassi. Linger and Ponce, the new players, acquisitions in that attacking unit. They rested Ponce from the U.S. Open Cup to start him here, and of course he's very fresh. He provided the header in that first goal. And the starting in the U.S. Open Cup are a reason why some other key players like Franco Escobar, less so now due to his age, but still an important player, Nicolas Lodero, and then their striker Sebastian Kowalczyk, they had to be in the bench. So a lot of managing minutes happening there. They kept Jonathan Bond fresh. They played their backup Jimmy Maurer during the U.S. Open Cup. Maybe part of why they were unable to beat Austin there. But I think that this is a strong Houston Dynamo side. You can see why they're close to us in the MLS standings, and that was reflected by the evenness of this game and the score. And there was some physicality early on. I noted in the 10th minute that Ian Harkes tried to bulldoze Griffin Dorsey, and I'm like, okay, you never want the referee to call a foul for you, but you were just kind of expecting at this point. And then there was a bit of a weird call 5 minutes before halftime where Daewon Jones, I swear it was a perfectly timed challenge, but yet it gave a free kick. And it required Earl Edwards Jr. to touch the header from Griffin Dorsey over the ball. And Hernan Lopez Lahi drove into the box and earned a penalty. And one more scary moment, Max Floriani's collision, and then he was bleeding. Did you see a little bit more about what happened there?
No, I didn't even see that Floriano is bleeding. That's crazy. I think the ref completely lost control of the game. I'm not someone who's like, oh, look at the foul count. I think that was more of like whatever I think they literally had double the fouls. I think it ended like 15-30 on the fouls. I'm not someone who's like the foul count should be even. One team might be fouling more than the other. With that being said, I think it was during the penalty fiasco where it was a penalty, then it wasn't a penalty, then it was a penalty, then it wasn't on top of the box, and then it was the fact like the entire Houston staff was able to like rush at the ref and then like persuade, and then they would talk about something. Then the Quakes would come over and say something like he needed to start dishing out yellows and just being like, anyone who talks to me now, whatever it is, like it's the laws of the game. Like he was losing up to that point, but he had lost it at that point because the rest of the game too started to get a little bit more intense and just no one was really caring. I think it was a really, really poor reffing display, which, to be fair, I think a game or two ago, like I wanted to give props to the refs. At least it was consistent both ways around.
I didn't like the decision in that Portland game because it sets a bad precedent that, even if you get the yellow cards, if you argue enough, you could change the decision. Now, whether or not the referee changed their decision on their own or had some influence from the players pressuring them, we'll never know. Only he knows. But it sucked that potentially played a factor in there. One of the surprising developments of this game was Joseph Martinez being a little bit of a roadblock at times in terms of the goal scoring opportunities. There was 2 or 3 occasions where it looked like he was in the way. Did that seem accurate?
Yeah, there was. I don't remember the exact people, but I think he was involved. There was one play where they were coming down to the bar end, and it was the right side of the field, but it was on my left. Someone was coming in, and then we had a break, and the spare runner, I think it was Joseph, ran across goal, like, and just brought the man into him, but then was running away to the corner versus like running wide and opening up the space. And then he just wasn't finishing as much. He has been beyond clinical so far this season. Like he's put some away that like there was no chance it was going. He somehow got a pass. Like he's looked really confident. And something about like his injury or something, like his confidence seems a little down, or he seems frustrated. Like he has seemed very frustrated. Like not running as much off the ball. Like after the games and whatever, maybe just really mad and angry. I could be misreading it. You never know what's going on at home as well. But there has been something different since around the time of the hamstring injury.
Yeah, I think that may be playing a role there. A lot of these players, they're either out due to injury or they're coming back from injury. That's going to be one of the storylines of this season. It hasn't been to a cataclysmic point where we're struggling to field a competitive roster, knock on wood, but it sucks that we have to keep pointing to those things. Of course, we can't blame every weakness or every poor performance on injury, but it's something that we have to consider as a possibility. One thing I'm considering is, other than Judd coming in the 64th minute, did you notice any other tweak or change in momentum that helped the Quakes get back in this game and then have those 3 unanswered goals to flip the script?
I can't name anything. Sorry, there's something going on right behind my house. There is, and it's gone. All right, sorry. No, I honestly didn't. I think just fresh legs was a big part of it. I think we're tired. I think we showed way more energy than I thought, and I'm surprised we went with such a lineup. I thought we might save ourselves a little bit for Galaxy. No, I think he just brought in momentum, and it kind of goes to my point, what I said versus the 2 Portland games. Or prior to this podcast, I said, what I think happened against Portland last time was we got some early goals, and we were able to carry that momentum, and I think the big test for us was going to be around 20 minutes in to see how we would go, and we started to tire out in that game. So I think in this game, sometimes you just need that little bit of luck. Like, you could argue Pellegrino, he does whatever you want to say about him finishing, I agree. The man is phenomenal at getting himself into positions to score and taking down the ball and creating the space. He just hasn't put it away. Sometimes you need that extra little bit of luck to just see it go back into the net and carry that momentum. I think that's what we got with Judd, and then we got it with Mooney, and then the whole stadium felt better. You feel the electricity going through. I think that was maybe some of the biggest changes, and I think it was a well-timed sub from Bruce.
Yeah. when awarding players of the match here, if we want to give a nod to Houston Dynamo, we'll give it to slightly less attractive Tommy Thompson. And then we'll stick with Preston Judd getting the honors for the Quakes and overall the Braits for sure. And then now we're looking at another double game week. But also we have to discuss this successful, but maybe still could have been more successful month of May. The big headline, of course, being undefeated since that loss to Columbus Crew at the end of April. However, you look under the hood, only 2 of those wins came in MLS play, and of the last 4 games, you've drawn 3 of them. And you can't really draw a U.S. Open Cup game, so that's a bit of an anomaly there. So, on one hand, it's great that we haven't been losing. But are we at the point yet where we start to be a little bit disappointed if the draw streak continues, even if we maintain undefeated status?
Me personally, no. No, we need to see some form of momentum because the last couple years, even when we've had like a decent squad or a decent run of form, it was like, look, we're doing really good. We just can't get the results. I think getting those results are really good. Now, we don't want to see a continuous theme of us going up goals and then conceding at the end to tie it. But I think the sort of momentum we have going right now is fine. And if we keep drawing, and like if you look at the opponents we were drawing against, like it's not always the worst thing in the world. Some games, right? Like the Sporting Kansas game, we lost bad, and then you look at that and you're like, oof. But then you win some of the other games, you're like, oh, okay, we got one there. I think New England, we had like a C tier squad in, we weren't really whatever. I think momentum is a big thing, and I think we felt it in this Houston match, like the ability to fight back and do that. It doesn't matter who it is or what it is. I think just getting any sort of a foot forward is momentum forward, and however you can keep that momentum. Now, if we kept drawing, we kept losing, yes, that would be bad. But I think as of right now, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, it's tough to project if we're trying to consider any of these games a must win because the next 4 that the Earthquakes play are on the road. So we've got LA Galaxy midweek, we've got St. Louis Saturday, then we have the June international break, so we don't play again until Friday, June 13th. That's Providence Park versus Portland Timbers. We get a Wednesday game in Toyota Stadium against FC Dallas. And then we have Stanford Stadium versus LA Galaxy. So that's our next home game. Thankfully, we get New York Red Bulls at home, so we don't have to go across the country. So that is very much appreciated. And then after we get players back, if anyone's called up in the Gold Cup, then we have our quarterfinal against Austin before we head to Minnesota. So very difficult stretch there with a lot of away games. So if you look at the table, sure, you would expect, okay, let's crush LA Galaxy. We would love that, but it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, I think this is a big time for the second unit to step up. I think we have a lot of injuries, especially when we look at like Chicho, Joseph, like you name it. I think the second squad are those guys who are like fringe first, fringe second, like Sydney Buddha. I think it's a big coming 1 to 2 months for them because all this travel is exhausting, and then getting into the season, and then how many games we've had this last couple of weeks, and then adding up, it's going to start getting fatiguing. Then you start getting the heat of the summer, and then depending where your points are, you might I feel like, and that's why I find the ties, because we're kind of in the running right now. We're kind of happy with the results somewhat. I think if we can kind of coast and keep it where it's going, and that's why I'm not too mad about this, and just stay in the game. Just stay in the game, so we don't have to really reach for it, but we're somewhat there. Then you start getting players back from international. You start getting some of the first team guys healthy and starting to get them some minutes again. Then you start getting some momentum in late August. Going into September, you're starting to really fire, and then you're looking crazy hot for the final part of the season. I think that might be great, what we're assuming. We're just trying not to overrun it right now. And I think that was a big concern of mine early in the season, especially when we're trying to throw all our starters on at once.
Yep, I agree there. So, with the Galaxy, this is probably the worst title defense since the 1998-1999 Chicago Bulls. And they had an excuse because Michael Jordan retired. I'm not saying Ricky Puig is the Michael Jordan of MLS. So I feel like that excuse to be this deep in the season without a win, I think it's expired. Like, obviously, you lose your best player, you're not going to be as good. But the way in which they regularly concede goals moments after scoring, they've given up leads left, right, and center. There are fights happening in their games against LAFC and San Diego. It's just a whole ass mess. It's just like, we're happy about it, of course, but it's just shocking. And you still have good contributions from Marco Royce. Sure, you just got Joseph Painstill back. Maybe Maya Yoshida's missed a step, but there's still some championship DNA on this team. So, what do you make of LA Galaxy's struggles so far?
It's beautiful. No, it's. I think they're tired, and I think I think Quakes fans know it too well. Is when it rains, it pours, and I think back to my talk about momentum and just needing to see something go in. I think they've seen a lot of like, oh, it's gonna be bad, and it's just kind of like you're in the negative mindset, and you're going, and like, say it or not, it does affect you, and it does kind of affect the way you go and just the energy in the stadium. I've had a disgusting feeling in my stomach for weeks now. And I've been saying it for a while now, so I'm not just saying it. I have been saying it since like a month or two ago that their first win, it is written in the stars that they are going to beat us. They're starting to play better. They're starting to get really close at some of these things, especially that last game. It was a 95th minute goal to concede to lose. Payne's still starting to come back, and he has been hell for us. Stars starting to come back. It's a midweek game for us. We have less rest. We're traveling. I am scared for this game on Wednesday. I'm actually going to the game on Wednesday. I'm driving all the way down. Funny story about that I can tell later. But I'm going to the game and I'm like, I have such a sick feeling in my stomach that we're gonna lose. And I kept telling all the guys like after the game, like, great game, beat LA, please. We can't be. And I'm like, please, this is the one game. This is the one game we can't lose, please.
Yeah, unfortunate last minute mistake, I believe Carlos Garces. And also apologies to the listeners. I know that I've transitioned a lot of my contributions on this podcast with yeah or yep. I will try to be a bit more creative in the future. Carlos Garces with a mistake that led to that 95-minute goal conceded. With Joseph Painstill, I think that the best thing we have for a solution to our Joseph Painstill problem is whichever side he is playing on, Daewon Jones needs to be matched up against him. I trust Daewon Jones more than I trust Vitor Costa in that matchup.
Just to build on your yeah point, to be fair to you, I yap a lot, so I don't really give you much to. It's kind of like, which one of the 18 points on this tangent did he go off of? You bring a lot to the podcast. For the real ball knowledge, you bring a lot. You got a deep history there. So, as far as Daewon, I got a crazy shout. Whatever side he's on, I want Daniel Mooney on that side. Not as far as on the wing, but I want Daniel Mooney to be the left center back, right center back. I think we'll just keep everything the same. I think Daniel Mooney's pace, I think his ability to recover, his ability to pressure and go in for a tackle has been phenomenal this season. I would love Daniel Mooney on his side. Because I think Daewon's just been caught out a couple times on defense in that final third, and that's maybe where he'd be a little more dangerous.
Has Daniel Mooney surpassed Dave Romney as our best center back of this trio that we have available?
It's tough. Sorry, there's like a thing going on, so I'll try and talk quick. Yes and no. I think all of them offer something specific, and I think Romney, as of late, has had the most, like, I don't want to say egregious blunders, but at least ones you can, like, see, and unfortunate ones, and he doesn't... Romney's fast. Romney is sneaky fast, but he's not these, like, 21-year-olds fast in quickness. I think maybe Romney, and what I like about him is I think he brings the leadership, and I think he brings the organization to the back line. So I think he's a bit of an unsung hero in that aspect, and I think they all bring a little bit of something between Floriani and then even Reed when he comes over. Also, what Romney does a lot, and I like it, only because it's Victor Costa. Victor Costa will be out of position, and like for some reason, Romney ends up playing like the left wing back, and it's happened multiple times. And then like they'll go up and down, and he'll kind of defend, and he'll rock all the way back to center back. And then credit to Costa, I gotta give it to him. He does a good job of reading the situation and makes his way to center back to kind of cover the situation. So it's a little hard for me to give one or the other the nod right now. I think they all have their own attributes.
The key to the Galaxy game has to be defensive focus. I think that their strengths lie in attack because they know that they need to score 2 or 3 goals to have a chance of winning this game. Probably the same can be true for the Earthquakes. Like, we'll see where this defense shows up on Wednesday. A lot is being put on a lot of the same group of defenders. Part of that is due to injury availability. I'm not sure if this is a game for Reed Roberts. I feel like maybe you could start him against St. Louis more than LA Galaxy, just the way that they've been struggling as well. But hopefully it's a shootout that we come out on top in, or we can provide another dose of misery, albeit of the more decisive variety. But we've said this a lot of times when LA Galaxy have been the stronger team, that with the Cali Clasico, it doesn't matter where we are on the table, that we expect to throw down. Like, it's going to be a really good game. Throw down on the field, though. Let's make that abundantly clear, because I know there's some LA Galaxy fans that are going to be at the... Oh, I mean, it's of course, it's a home game for LA Galaxy. I was thinking ahead to the Stanford game.
Yeah.
But we don't condone the things that we've seen regarding the San Diego and LA Galaxy fans. Doesn't matter who started it. Just behave like adults.
Yeah, I will. I will give a little lenient, and I agree. It doesn't matter who started it. I will give a little leniency to LA on that. From the reports I have seen, and especially from some of the ones on there, it was like the San Diego fans really were the ones who did just about 99% of it and started into that. Anyways, agreed. No violence. I think it's a. I think this is a big game for us. I think not just because of the whole record thing. I think Bruce needs to sit down. They need to give some sort of motivational speech of like, look, every year they have come and like, especially this team, but every team has looked at us as the 3 points, easy team, bad team, this, that, the other. And this team in particular is our rivals. We do not let them win. They do not let us be us. We will not let them disrespect us. I think you got to come out swinging in those first 10 minutes. First 10, 20, shock them. I think if you get the momentum going in those first 10, 20, and you get some early goals, and they don't rely on it, then you can kind of, not coast, but like go back to your regular pace, and you come out, they will be so mentally out of it and checked out. I think that's kind of where that team's at. I think, and we can relate as Quakes fans. It was like there's a little hope every game, and then once that first goal was in, it was like, okay, let's just wait till the whistle's over. I think it's at that point, it's got to be I think it's more of a mental game, and I think trying to assert dominance and say, like, look, this is a special group of players this year. This is a game where you prove it. I don't care what the LA Galaxy is saying. You win big here. You go for another one of those 6-1, 7-0s in this game. I think that's the mentality we got to going into this game.
Bruce Arena's a mercenary, too. I think that the way he approached the New England game, he thought he could win with that lineup, even if it was rotated. For LA Galaxy, he has an even more of a point to prove because for all he accomplished with New England Revolution with the Supporters' Shield, he accomplished so much with LA Galaxy. Those 6 rings that their fans love to boast about and that they're reminding everybody about because they have nothing else to brag about this season is because of Bruce Arena. So now he has a chance to be on the good side, the side of the force in this rivalry, and we'll see if we can kick up.
Yeah, it'll for sure be an interesting one. I'm going down with the hopes of leaving with a Christian Espinoza jersey. I saw Christian after the game, and he's like, "Oh, you guys going to L.A.?" And I said, "Yeah, we'll see you at Stanford." Because I'm like, we're not going to L.A. And as he's walking away, I'm like, "Oh, okay, let me just say it." I'm like, "Christian, if I drive to the game, will you give me your jersey?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, no, like really, if I go all that way, am I gonna get jerseys? Like, if I can see you, like if you aren't way up there. So I got tickets. Actually, I have 2 sets of tickets. I have one that is right behind the goal, like right behind it, literally row A, whatever. I'm gonna be there for warm-ups, and I'm gonna be there for the last like 10 minutes of the game. And then Jacob, my old co-host, and then some of my old friends from LA that live in LA now, we're gonna actually just watch most of the game in the middle, but on the TV, last 10 minutes of warm-ups. I'm gonna be there. I'm making a fake jersey with my name on it to do a jersey swap with him. Driving down Wednesday morning, really hope. That's another reason I hope they don't lose, because I'm like, oh god, I hope he's in a good mood.
Yeah, I agree with that. You've made the drive many times down there, but even more so to Santa Barbara for college. So just add 2.5 hours.
Yeah, just 2 hours. Yeah, yeah. It's like a couple bathroom breaks. Maybe I'll stop at my old alma mater, like, say, hey, what's up? Get some food or something.
You still
We'll
have some
see.
friends down there?
Yeah, I do actually. I'm going to a friend's graduation in 2 weeks. I think she graduates. Yeah.
Yep. And it is graduation season, so congratulations to anyone watching that is either graduating or knows someone who is. Doesn't matter what level, congratulations. Lastly, we already discussed one matchup against a former Dortmund-led team in Marco Reus. Now another former Dortmund-led team in Roman Berkey, St. Louis City. I don't think we've beaten St. Louis City yet. Do you remember?
I don't think so. I don't even know if we've tied them, because like every time we've played them, that was when they were having like their crazy seasons. And then
Definitely the
even when they
first
weren't
season,
as
of course.
yeah, and then even when they were not as good, that was like our worst season. I think we lost like 4-2, like really bad. It might have, and then we might have like tied it, and then they got some like late goals. Yeah, I don't think we beat them.
If we lose again to St. Louis, I think that they beat Minnesota as our number one bogey team because this is the poor run of form they're in. They last time they have won an MLS game goes back to March 15th. They beat Seattle Sounders 1-0, albeit in their home ground, so we do have to be wary of that. They have won just once since then, and that was a 2-0 win to Union Omaha in the U.S. Open Cup. They've since been dumped out of the U.S. Open Cup by Minnesota United, so they've lost four of their last five. The sole exception being a 2-2 draw against Sporting Kansas City, which Sporting Kansas City promptly made a picture of that game as their profile picture. Because once again, Sporting Kansas City also struggling. That was their highlight of their season so far. But St. Louis City are in a bit of a slump. They have missed some players due to injury, but also I think a lot of the remaining star players, those stars have dimmed, with the exception of Roman Berkey from their heroics in the 2023 season, and a lot of their acquisitions primarily coming back from the German Bundesliga and two Bundesligas. They've had mixed results there. So we'll see what happens there because so much of what happens in that game depends on what happens in LA Galaxy. If we beat LA Galaxy in Dignity Health Sports Park, Carson, I think that increases the likelihood that we rotate players.
I think it's a big 3 games mentally for us. I think this, I don't want to say it's a season defining 3 games because you never know in MLS, but I think this could be a serious playoff defining moment, whether we are kind of scraping where we are now or if we see ourselves going towards that top half. I think if we get a big win versus LA, that's some momentum. We're like, oh, our rivals, this, that, there, we dominated. Then we get a big win versus St. Louis, a team that's beat us. They're not doing too well. We dominate again. And if we can pull out a draw, and like, hey, we've never won here before, but this is a good team. We beat them twice, and then we tied the third one. I think we're looking at those 3 games, and we're starting to really feel ourselves, and we're starting to really think we can do some stuff. And I think that's just great culture to have in the locker room and to push forward. So I think it's going to be a very, very important 3 games because I believe Portland is after this, right, on that Friday.
Yeah. 3 games, including the Houston Dynamo game we just had.
I think it's LA Galaxy, St. Louis, Portland.
Oh, so you're including the
Friday.
Portland game on June 13th.
Yes, June 13th. Yes, yes. I'm saying if we, starting from LA, if we win those 3 games, and then when we play Portland on that Friday, in Portland, which we've never beat them there, if we can get even a tie there, I think, and then we win these other 2 and we win them convincingly, I think we're looking at some serious swagger and momentum going into the summer.
These are certainly winnable games. Had this early game that starts at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time happen any other Saturday, I would be tempted to say win, lose, or draw. Let's record after that St. Louis game, and we go fresh from there. But because it's the Champions League that day, we're probably going to be hanging out with friends and family, and we just want to soak in the entire experience. I love the San Jose Earthquakes, but I'm still going to be very much invested in the Champions League, as I imagine everyone is. If you are of the belief that, okay, Quakes before the Champions League final, that is totally acceptable too, but understand that not everyone's going to be on the same boat. You know, that's fine. So we're probably going to be sticking with our usual recording schedule there, but it'll give us more time to marinate and maybe get back on track, because if we are drinking it during the Champions League final, probably wouldn't want to record a podcast right after that anyway. So, do you
I think
have
we
a
should. That
preference?
sounds like a fun idea. I think that sounds like a good episode.
Do you have a preference between Inter Milan or PSG?
I like both. I love the idea of Italian soccer being back. I like a lot of the players on Inter Milan. There's just something, and I know they're still sponsored by oil money, but there's just something funny to me about like PSG's first, like, hey, we're gonna make a really good team versus like global superstars. And no disrespect, because like I would say just about everyone on that starting 11 is a top like international star for their country. Kvaratskhelia is the real deal. Hakimi, great, we already know. Donnarumma, Marquinhos, literally the midfield three, Portuguese and Spanish stars. With that being said, it's not the same way Mbappe, Neymar, and Messi are household names.
Ibrahimovic.
Yeah. If you don't watch soccer, you know those names. Not people who watch soccer, me myself included, are still not even sure if we're pronouncing Kvaratskhelia correctly, right? So I think it would be great, and I just loved how they play it. But I'm just hoping for a good game more than anything else.
While we're talking Champions League, I also want to congratulate Arsenal winning the UEFA Women's Champions League as well. I think that's a huge result. Shout out to Emily Fox and Jen Nightswanger as well, the U.S. Women's National Team players who lifted that trophy with Arsenal. I think that's going to be a really impactful moment for women's soccer across the globe, just to spread a little bit of that success outside of the Barcelona and Lyon duopoly. So that's pretty cool too. Any other closing thoughts on anything, Saz?
I need everyone to pray that I get this Christian Espinosa jersey, because if I'm driving all the way there, I'm also going to my girlfriend's this weekend, who lives in the lovely city of Fresno, California, which if you've never been, no need to. Like don't even drive by it. Like, that's my recommendation. So I'm either driving really depressed and going to Fresno, and that's my source of happiness, which already kind of sets that up, or I'm leaving with an Espinosa jersey. Either way, it'll be a fun story. But yeah, let's go Quakes.
So distribute 50% of the prayers to Saz's adventure. 50% that we are not the first team to lose to LA Galaxy
Dude, I know.
this season.
Oh my god. I don't like, if we lost first time, that's one thing. I don't want to be the first one. Like, I don't want to be the one to... There was a sick part of me, and I'm going to take full credit for this. There was a sick part of me when we were kind of like losing some games in a row, that I thought LA was going to, by the end of the year, have a better record than us. I don't know if I believe... I don't feel that way anymore, that they'll have a better record than us. But if and you know what, Devin, because I think he's the one editing this, save this clip by the end of the year. If LA beats us on Wednesday and they end higher than us, either they had the greatest season ever and promote them, or sell the whole team. Sell the whole team. So sell them back to Houston. I don't care.
We cannot end the podcast on that negativity, so one other thing I just thought of, Marcos Lopez, Danish League champions. Let's go.
Oh, yes. Congratulations to him as well, yeah.
That's all we got for you tonight. Go Quakes.
Go Quakes.